The moment I received that $50,000 performance bonus from my firm, it felt like the universe was finally acknowledging years of overlooked effort. After grinding my way up in a high-pressure legal office, where I was often the last to leave and the first to show up, I'd finally been rewarded for spearheading a brutal class action suit. It was my win. My name in the headlines, my celebration. And yet, the celebration wasn't mine. I remember walking into my parents' house that weekend with a small cake in hand. Nothing extravagant, just something to mark the milestone and share it with the people I assumed would be proud of me. My dad barely glanced up from his tablet. My mom gave me a quick hug and told me my brother was in the kitchen with some big news. There he was, Ryan. Always the golden child. Always the miracle baby my parents praised after struggling to have another kid post me. And sure enough, his news wasn't just big. It was apparently earth-shattering. He and his fiancée Chloe had just booked a luxury honeymoon to the Maldives, overwater bungalows, private chef, sunset dinners, all of it. The numbers didn't click in my mind until my mother casually mentioned, "Oh, and we helped them out with the costs. He really deserves this after all the stress of wedding planning." I remember blinking, slowly. "Helped them out?" I asked. "With what money?" My father cleared his throat, wouldn't meet my eyes. My mom waved a hand like it was nothing. "Sweetheart, you know money's tight lately, but you said your bonus was just sitting in the account and family helps family." I couldn't breathe. They had accessed my emergency savings, an account I'd set up with their help years ago after college, when I trusted them blindly with shared access in case of medical emergencies or death. They thought my $50,000 bonus was theirs to play with. And worse, they gave it to Ryan. Ryan, who hadn't worked a job longer than 6 months. Ryan, who once sold my childhood bike online for weed money and never apologized. Ryan, who now stood in front of me grinning like the world had handed him a first-class ticket for being born second. I asked them if they were serious. "You don't even have a boyfriend," my mother said flatly, sipping her wine. "What were you going to do with all that money? Let it collect dust?" My hands trembled so badly I dropped the fork I was holding. There was no apology, no remorse. My bonus, my achievement, had become Ryan's honeymoon gift. And they didn't even think I'd be mad. They thought I'd be grateful to have contributed. I walked out without touching a single bite of cake. Back in my apartment, I stared at the empty bank statement. I knew I needed to feel the burn. I needed to let it blister. But I also needed a plan, and if my parents thought I was the type to let this slide quietly, they were about to realize just how beautifully wrong they were. I couldn't sleep that night. The betrayal ran so deep, it was as if they'd ripped something vital out of me and handed it away with a smile. The bonus I earned with sleepless nights, overtimes, and skipped vacations, now burned away in a honeymoon I hadn't even been invited to attend. But I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice, delivered in the most poetic way possible. I didn't confront them the next morning. Instead, I smiled as if I didn't already know. I joined them at the breakfast table where Mom gleefully shared honeymoon photos sent by my brother from a luxury resort in Bora Bora. My father chuckled, reading aloud texts from the newlyweds. "The infinity pool is insane. Thanks again for making this possible, Dad." The word Dad didn't even sting. It was the thanks again that stabbed me. They hadn't even tried to hide it. I excused myself early and headed to my room, but not to cry. No. This was war, and I needed a plan. I pulled out my laptop and stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I remembered something. 2 years ago, when I'd helped set up Dad's business, I'd become an unofficial part of the finance system. My name wasn't on the company, but the back end was something I had designed, monitored, and optimized for tax reasons. In fact, I still had back-end access. Why? Because Dad had once said, "You're the only one I trust to keep it clean." So I logged in. Their personal and business accounts were deeply intertwined. Classic mistake. Within an hour, I didn't just see the vacation expense. I saw years of small, secret financial injustices. Money earmarked for me used for my sister's braces. Funds borrowed temporarily and never returned. Little by little, it had added up. I'd been their invisible piggy bank. My fingers trembled with adrenaline, not fear, as I moved forward. I didn't steal or transfer a penny. I didn't have to. I just locked the system. Without warning. No access, no payroll, no invoices, no financial reports. The system required a key login only I had. It wasn't permanent, but it was enough to create panic. And panic they did. By morning, Dad was pacing outside my bedroom door. "Can you check the system? It's saying access denied." I opened the door with a sweet smile. Weird. I'll check later. I have a brunch appointment." "Brunch? With who?" I didn't answer. I just walked past him, confident, calm, and plotting. That brunch? It wasn't with a friend. It was with a travel agent. And that's when I decided I wasn't just going to take a vacation. I was going to live my moment. I told the agent I wanted the most expensive honeymoon package they had, but for a solo traveler. No plus one, just me. She blinked at first, then grinned and said, "I like your style." I booked a week at the same resort in Bora Bora, same villa style, same champagne on arrival package, except I upgraded even further. Helicopter transfers, a private yacht for a day, and a photographer to follow me like I was royalty. The only thing left? Payment. And guess what? I paid using the exact same corporate card my parents had used for my brother, because while I hadn't stolen, I had frozen their access. They couldn't even check balances. The money moved, and they were none the wiser. The day I left, I didn't say goodbye. I left a note. I thought it was only fair to have my own honeymoon, too. Thanks for covering it. See you when I'm tanned. What followed was the most cathartic experience of my life. Every sunrise on the beach felt like I was burning off years of being the afterthought child. I sipped wine under the stars, wrote a poem on a napkin about letting go, and even told the photographer to take a picture of me standing on the balcony with my arms wide open. I titled it Liberation. She laughed. I meant it. And then came the phone calls. First it was Mom. I ignored it. Then Dad. 30 missed calls in one day. He even emailed, "What's going on? The company is in chaos." My reply was short. "You didn't ask when you took my money." Don't ask now. But the real twist came on day 5 of my luxury solo trip. I opened my inbox and found something unexpected. A message from my brother's wife. Subject line, "I had no idea." I hesitated, then clicked. Her message was simple but powerful. She had learned that the honeymoon had been funded by my bonus and that I had been pushed aside for months while they celebrated her. She apologized, not just for her role, but for being part of a family that treated me like a background prop, and she offered something surprising, a chance to start over. As friends, not sisters-in-law, just women who could see the damage done and maybe start healing. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. When I stepped off the plane, the air back home felt heavier. But I wasn't the same woman who had left. I didn't rush home. I went straight to a lawyer's office. Not for a lawsuit, but to sever financial dependency entirely. I revoked my back-end access, drafted a legal notice to formally disassociate from my father's company, and signed over any remaining unpaid contributions, with one note. I don't want repayment. I want distance. When I finally returned to the house, my parents were waiting. My father was red-faced with fury, pacing like a man who had lost control of his empire. My mother was near tears, though I couldn't tell if it was from guilt or inconvenience. "You humiliated us," my father spat. I didn't flinch. "No," I said quietly. "You did that to yourselves. I just gave you a mirror." They tried guilt. They tried yelling. But I remained calm. Finally, I handed them an envelope and said, "Here's your copy of my letter of withdrawal from your company. Your resort charges are being audited, and from this point forward, I'm done funding people who don't see me as family." That was the last time I walked into that house. A week later, they received a letter from the credit card company flagging the duplicate honeymoon expenses and misuse of corporate funds. My father's company, already on shaky ground, spiraled. My brother called once, furious. "You could have just asked for the money back," he said. I smiled on the phone. And you could have just not taken it. But the real closure came months later when my photo from the trip went viral, picked up by a travel magazine. The solo honeymooner who turned betrayal into a celebration of self. It wasn't the attention that mattered. It was the caption I wrote that people remembered. Sometimes the only vow you need is the one you make to yourself. That was the moment I knew. I didn't need my family's approval, their apologies, or their presence. I had given myself something far more valuable than money could ever buy: freedom. And this time, no one could steal that from me.